From the Oklahoman newsroom, this is a Varsity Update. I'm Jenny Carlson. The OSSAA Board of Directors met today, and Adam Kemp was there as a couple of important issues were brought before the board. And Adam, top of the list has been something that we have been diving into in our coverage in recent days, and that's the debate over public and private playoff competition. This was something that was addressed several years ago. Today, Blanchard superintendent brought a proposal before the board of directors. Tell us how things went. It didn't take long before the board made a decision on this, right?
Right, yeah, no, it was a packed house at the OSSAA meeting today. Go figure. It's the first time I've seen other people there. But they just happened to put that first on the agenda. It was an important topic. They wanted to really address it quick, and they did so. They let Blanchard Athletic Director, Superintendent Jim Beckham, address kind of what his thoughts were on this proposal, which is he wants to separate, come playoff time, schools that basically control their enrollment versus schools that don't. Public versus private versus charter versus magnet schools. It's all pretty complicated, but we've dived into it, kind of like you said. But that was the proposal. The board heard it and voted to reject his proposal, and that proposal passed 12-2. So in the end, nothing changes. The board talked about wanting to go back and really maybe take a second look at this issue on their own terms. Really maybe take a look at the socioeconomic issues of what are the advantages that some of the more affluent schools have versus some of the lower, socioeconomic schools. It brought up a lot of good discussion. It was a really interesting day.
Yeah, and you mentioned, Beckham brought this proposal, the Blanchard superintendent, before the board, and in his comments he said, he basically thought that this proposal was fair and it should be allowed to go out to the membership to vote on. We knew that the board could do a variety of things, everything from, do what they did and just squash it entirely, or they could send out something with a revamped look to it. But, the fact that they just said no outright, do you feel like this is it, that the OSSAA has said we're done with this issue for now, or the fact that there are other varieties of plans that I guess could be sent out to the membership to vote on? What's sort of your best guess about where things go from here?
The feeling I got from talking to everyone after was that there's enough support, I believe, within the board to take a look at this issue again and really maybe come up with a more equitable solution for everybody. I kind of think they talked about outliers a lot in this scenario. Heritage Hall being kind of the outlier of the private schools. They are dominating that class. Well, I talked to Millwood superintendent, and she said, well, we're a public school, but we're dominating, and we're on 90% free and reduced lunch. So what makes us different? It really seemed like they were all committed to exploring, what is going on, what are the advantages some schools have versus some that don't. So I believe they're going to explore it and maybe come up with a different option. I just don't believe they liked this option from Blanchard.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, there are options out there, and one that it sounds like that Blanchard superintendent believes could happen could be something legislative in the state legislature. He made a point during his presentation that he did have a plan B and had talked to some legislators about this. What do we know about that, Adam? Yeah,
from what we know, he's been talking to some state legislators. He wouldn't really go into detail about who just yet, but we've heard through different people that had been happening. He said it's just going to be the same exact proposal in more of a written law form that he's trying to get some backing on. He's already been in contact. He's already submitted his proposal to different people, and I think he said, Beckham from Blanchard, that he did not really want to go this route, but he doesn't feel like the OSSAA is hearing, the voices of its constituents, basically, and that if this is the only route he has left, he's going to pursue it.
Adam, before we let you go, another topic that was discussed today at the Board of Directors that I think has a little bit more agreement among members is establishing a dead period for high school sports during the summer, basically an off time when athletes would be allowed to be away from sports and get some rest and get some distance. What can you tell us about where things stand with that potential dead period?
Yeah, it was interesting. Today was supposed to be when they voted on to send this dead period proposal out to its members to vote on. They have been discussing it now for months, trying to gather as much information and a good plan together as possible. And in the end, they voted today not to send it out to their voters. So basically, it seemed everyone had been given enough feedback and enough, different answers from schools across the state that they had more questions today than they had answers on this dead period. And it's a simple concept, really. Just 2 weeks off during the middle of the summer. Coaches and players can't have contact with each other, and players aren't supposed to be allowed in school facilities to, keep practicing or training, lifting weights, things like that. It's supposed to be complete time off. Well, schools are trying to balance, like, okay, do we have different schools have different time periods off? It's a lot of just trying to figure out what works best for the most people, I think, right now. And the OSSAA board wants to come back around and really hammer down more definite guidelines before they send that out to their constituents to vote on. So.
All right, lots going on at the OSSAA Board of Directors meeting today. Adam will have all of that coverage on newsok.com and in the Oklahoman, so be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoman.